How do stop losses work on Kraken? Let's say I have a birthday party on Wednesday night, but an important meeting Thursday morning. So Sensible Me pre-books a taxi for 10 p.m. with alerts. Voila! I won't be getting carried away and staying out till 2. That's stop loss orders on Kraken, an easy way to plan ahead. Go to kraken.com and see what crypto can be. Not investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Interactive Inc., PWI, DBA Kraken. View PWI's disclosures at kraken.com/legal/disclosures.
This episode is brought to you by Merrill. Join one of the most iconic names in wealth management, Merrill. You'll be part of a dynamic team of advisors and specialists working hard every day to grow their clients' wealth. And with the support of best-in-class research, advanced digital tools, and the resources of a global institution, it's truly an opportunity you can be bullish about. Learn more at careers.bankofamerica.com. Copyright 2024, Bank of America Corporation.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got Helene Gidley coming out of Michigan, and she is a productivity coach. She helps clients master productivity. She is passionate about helping people get organized, and she's built her method, the Art of Agile Living, which I'm really excited to have her talk about. And she uses these to integrate into teams to manage their work and provide focus, order, and motivation. Helen, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, Christopher. And just so people can get the name right, it's Helene, just like the hurricane that came through. So if you need help remembering the name, just think of that awful hurricane that it left all that damage throughout the country. But so happy to be here with you.
Yeah. And briefly introduce yourself, and I'm excited to dive into the questions.
Yeah, well, no, I'm excited to be here with everyone. I've spent my career in the IT industry. And while I've worked with teams over the years on managing projects, I've been a project manager and a software development engineer and a manager. I've found that what we have our teams do, and particularly in the software side, in ways that we help them manage their projects, seems to me it could be a way that we could do this for our own work. And people are like anything like me, that it always seems like there's more to do than I feel like I can fit in a day. And that holy grail is finding a way to manage your work. So I've just blended a bit of what I've learned in the software industry side to my superpower of organizing things to create the Art of Agile Living that I'm happy to share with everybody.
Yeah. And diving into the first question I have for you is, we have the 4 principles of Agile project management, and what are they and how can they be adapted from the IT into everyday life?
So a big part of Agile is finding focus, having your work being transparent and visible, beginning to deliver in small increments, and getting fast and early feedback. And these are just some of the key tenets of Agile. And this is a big part of something that we can do for ourselves. And for me, when people ask, and you may ask, because this is a common question, what's the one thing I can do to start using this method of getting more work done and feeling less overwhelmed? And the first thing is learning to break your work down into smaller chunks. And that's part of that Agile approach of being iterative and incremental and getting early feedback. When you look at projects, whether they're projects at home or things that you're doing for a client or for any work involvement that you've got, it's all about learning to get some feedback early on to see, am I on the right track? Is this what you wanted? And that's a big part of how I'm taking these Agile techniques that we have. Software development teams have been using now for over a decade or more now, and applying it to our everyday activities. And people who follow it, I've been hearing, are having great success with it. It's helping.
Yeah. The next question I have for you is, you've transformed Agile practices into a personal productivity system. And what sparked this innovation, and how has your method evolved over the years?
Yeah, I love that question. And a lot of it started back, I was working as a contractor as a standard project manager for a large pharmaceutical firm here in town where I live. And I was working on a number of projects, as project managers do. And we brought in another project manager that I knew. And both he and I had spent some time working in the Agile world. Now, this pharmaceutical company was in no way agile, but Mike and myself would look at ways that we could better utilize our time between each other. We were both managing similar projects for the same department, and we thought, gosh, there's got to be a way where we can back each other up. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So we started to blend our work, and the first thing we did was we posted it up on the wall. And we used some of the planning techniques that we had both learned in our Agile experiences and put up all our work and all the tasks that we were doing. And we would do it for a week. And the first week that went by, we thought, this is going to be great. We're going to get everything done. And we found it worked partway, but not as much as we had hoped. So part of the thing that we evolved, that we learned about, was while we put up all of our tasks, all the things that we needed to get done, and we made them visible, we tried to keep them small, tried to get things done in iterative, incremental fashion, we still weren't getting it all done. We forgot one really critical piece, and that is the hard demands on our time. Every meeting that we're in, every appointment that we've got scheduled, right? Every other commitment that we have in our lives takes time from our daily work. And we quickly realized that the 8-hour day is a myth, that you're lucky if you get 6 hours. And I talk to people today and they say, oh my gosh, if I get 2 hours of actual work, I'm golden. So we quickly learned that those hard demands on our time really do take time away from our ability to get things done. And I really need to plan that. I need to have my day look like what my day looks like. If I have a meeting at 9 o'clock and another one at 10 and another one at 1 o'clock, how much work can I get done in between that and still have time to eat lunch and go use the restroom? So that's one of the first evolutions that we made, was recognizing that you need to allocate time for everything in your day. And when you look at how much tasks you want to get done, you really need to think about all those other demands. And once you've got that in front of you, then you can really start to manage your time. So that was one of the first evolutions. And one of the second one was actually making it smaller. So I actually have things on small sheets of paper now, rather than a big sheet on the wall behind me. I have something like just printer paper, 8x10, that I carry around with me. And that's where I now put everything, using these really small 1x2 sticky notes. So that's some of my early evolution to try to keep things small, incremental, and workable throughout my day. Does that help?
Yeah, it really, I wanted to ask you more. And so we hear a lot about, I'm going to ask you more about professional agility, but I want to talk to you about productivity in the future, because seeing rapid changes in the workplace with remote work, and how do your principles evolve to meet future challenges, as well as this concept of productivity?
For what the process that I use is designed for an individual to help manage your time. So even though whether you're working remotely or if you're working, in an office space, this is for managing your work, right? So there's that distinction. We still have work that we are managing for perhaps project teams, where you may be working with others. So this is not for working with others. This is for managing your tasks and the things that you are on the hook to create and to get done. And that's the big part of, there's two key pieces. And the one is that you can tell this is tactile. This is paper. I am not taking electronic tools around with me. And this is very intentional. There's that piece of us as humans where we've really evolved in a physical world. We interact with the physical world. Touching something, putting work on a sticky like this makes it more real than typing it into some tool that it's great when I'm looking at that tool, whether it's a Trello table or a Microsoft project plan or a to-do list or a task list. But the moment it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And that's when it's easy for you to get distracted on the next flashy, cute thing that you want to do, or this next interrupt that comes in. And that's a big part of my keeping it physical, which keeps it tactile. And there's something about this having a physical piece this is where I talk about kinesthetics and how our body, as we interact with a task, I've created something, like here it is, my 4 o'clock podcast. This is physical. This is a piece of work. And once I'm done with it, I'm going to put a check mark on it and move it to a done column. And holding it like this makes it feel a lot more real than something where it's just an electronic version of something that I click and move. And yes, it can change colors, but my body hasn't interacted with it. And once you get your body interacting with it and those senses of touch interacting with it, you have just made it more real and more concrete. And that's also a big part of the motivation, right? We've used techniques like this. Everyone's got a new technique for managing your work. It's been almost time immemorial. We have been struggling with that. And I think a lot of the challenges are, it doesn't feel real enough. I'm not interacting with that piece of work in a elaborate sense. And that's why I stay away from the electronic tools as a way of really managing it. And I use the physical, tactile approaches. And I find that it just grounds me a lot more. And it keeps me more motivated as I see and feel something go from have to do this to it's done. It's a real motivator, and those endorphin rush that you get of, oh, I completed something. And that's part of what keeps me motivated, and others who use this keeps us motivated to keep using the process.
Yeah, I really like that. I really love how you're describing, and it really reminds me of just the emotional feel, and you're talking about the tactile sensations. Question I have for you is, how are you thinking about your methodology and your core principles in the age of AI? And how are you thinking about AI and how it's going to affect your clients and how you do things?
That's a great question as well. And I know where AI is taking over and enabling us in a lot of ways. I think I, like many, use AI for helping with some of the mundane tasks and helping us gather information and summarize information. I started using some of the AI techniques early on to even help me break down work. I used it as simple as I was experimenting with someone of, okay, how could we use this to help you take the work that you say, I've got this big project. I can't imagine how can I get it into smaller bits. So I took the project of, I want to build a bookcase. I know nothing about building bookcases. It's a bunch behind me, but I don't know how to build them. Yeah. And so I threw that into the AI tool, and it came up with a wonderful set of individual steps that could each be a separate piece of work. Or a small, and I can have, and that's part of what been using AI for, is to help me, if it's something too big that I just can't get my hands around how to break it down, the AI tools are actually very good at doing that. And they understand software technologies. They understand the terms of things like story cards. So for those in the Agile teams, and you hear about software development, they all talk about user stories and story cards. So as ways of representing your work. So I can do the same thing and say, write me story cards for creating a bookshelf from scratch. And the tool will come back with a list of stories that become these, right? And that I can put onto something small. And I can ask the AI tool to make it small, make it something that's anywhere from 15 minutes to 1 hour in length. And that's one of my big tenets as well with using this process, is keep your work anywhere from nothing smaller than 5 minutes, and nothing greater than 2 hours, but I try to keep it even shorter than that. Because really, when was the last time you had even 2 hours of uninterrupted time to work on one task, right? And that's how I want to look at it, right? Can I get that one thing done in that time period so that I can get some early feedback, get some visibility on the work, and begin to see some real progress in the approach in my work. So that's how I'm seeing how AI can really help us on this.
Yeah. I know we're coming towards the end, and to share some success stories of how Agile Living helped individuals have better work-life synergy or better agility at home, or as well as professionally. Talk about some success stories.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking with this woman who taken one of my early training classes. I've been giving seminars on how to use this method for a couple of years now. And I had a great chat with her in the last few months. And is explaining while she took my class a year and a half or so ago, she's still using the techniques. She puts all her, instead of using a planning sheet that I do, instead of using this sheet of paper, she puts hers on her cubicle wall in front of her. But she still uses sticky notes. And I think for her, she puts the sticky notes up there. And that's her way of managing the work that she's got coming. And she says, when she goes into a meeting, she brings her sticky notes with her and a pen to write with. And she says her team now knows when she gets her sticky notes out and she starts writing, they know that piece of work will get done. She's now trained her team to recognize what she means about getting work done and how serious she takes the requests for work. And I thought that was a really a success story because it showed others reacting to a process that you use for managing your own work. And that her team felt, oh, she's got her sticky, oh, my piece of work made it to a sticky note. I know it will get done. And I thought that was the real success. Absolutely.
Yeah. And closing comments, advice for newcomers, for someone new to Agile, what are the first steps they should take to start incorporating Agile methods into their life, and how can people find you?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the first things you could start to do is, as I mentioned at the beginning, start to break things down into smaller pieces of work, right? And whether you're going to use AI to help you break this down into something smaller, or just challenge yourself to think of, how can I take this task of even writing a status report and make it into something, instead of a big 3-hour task, into something I can break into maybe multiple 45-minute tasks or half-hour tasks, to get little bits together at a time that you can now fit within your day. So begin to break your work into smaller chunks and really challenge yourself to work on one thing at a time. One thing. Really force yourself to not multitask, which means sometimes turning off the Slack channel and putting your phone on quiet and turning the focus on your machine, whatever it is that you need to do to try to give yourself some quiet time so that you can work on one thing at a time. And that is one of the really key pieces to really help you get work done and to be motivated.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that really helped me is just waking up like a few hours before everybody else does. And that way it's like you can, drink your coffee, you can think, you can read, you can write, and just like uninterrupted before the world wakes up and, the catches, basically the shit hits the fan. But
exactly. And isn't that a wonderful time? Isn't that just glorious to be able to have that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really helpful.
Yeah. How can people reach out to you and contact you? And what's your grand vision? Where do you want to go from here?
I'd love to help everyone do all this work. I've got a book out, The Art of Agile Living, available on Amazon. So just for me, where I'd love to see this go is everyone who's struggling to get things done or even get things started has a chance to pick this up and use some of the techniques to get your work done. So I'd love to see you become successful. But I have a website. You can go to artofagileliving.com. Let me just make sure artofagileliving.com. And you can find me there. That have a link to the book, a link to a forum. I'm available on LinkedIn. If you want to connect up with me, it's Helene Gidley on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you and how this technique works for you, or if you have any questions, I'm there to help. One project, one task at a time, help the world get their things done.
Excellent. And really enjoyed this conversation, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everyone.